this is why I make it a point to eat certain foods on a daily basis. But sometimes I just get too busy. So I have an insurance policy for myself by taking hi friends. Here are my top 10 things that I do daily to bulletproof my immunity. Number 1 is to get adequate UVB and visible light, which is opposite of the UVA rays that are emitted in tanning salons. Those are the same photoaging rays from the sun, but the sun also emits the health-promoting visible light and UVB rays, and this is where timing is super important. It's not just how long you're in the sunlight, but it's actually when you get that sunlight. The wrong wavelength, like UVA, can speed up the age of your skin. So if you want to look a few decades younger than your biological age, then it's best to avoid sun tanning salons and midday sunlight between 10 and 4 p.m. The best time of day to get UVB sun rays and visible light is when you wake up early in the morning before 10 a.m. or in the afternoon after 4 p.m. The sunlight between those times accelerates photoaging big time by reducing collagen and elastin. It increases fine lines, broken capillaries, and age spots. And this works against taking collagen supplements. Now, it sounds so bad, but if you're a shift worker or, like me, have an indoor job, any sunlight at that point is better than none, as sunlight is necessary to feel good and be well. It's not just for vitamin D synthesis, even though that is really important. Sunlight ensures that your mood, metabolism, sleep, and immunity are all optimal. And I learned this the hard way because I hardly got any sunlight for 9 years of my life going through medical school, residency, and fellowship. And when I emerged at the end of the tunnel, I realized I sacrificed nearly a decade of my health and my immunity, metabolism, my sleep, and my mood, which translates into feeling like crap and living less long. I had a single-digit vitamin D level and got the sickest I've ever been in my life during my pediatrics rotation for 3 continuous months. This was 2 years into medical school. And before that time, I've never missed a day of school since preschool. So I wondered, what's wrong with me? I didn't find out until 7 years later when I got my first vitamin D level that was a single-digit value. Very, very bad. As a medical student, I learned to take care of others, but I didn't learn how to take care of myself. Unfortunately, if you don't care for yourself first, you won't be well to care for other people. Now, I didn't realize avoiding sunlight would give me so many problems. I had a super low pathogenic vitamin D level that suppressed my immune system. And this is why number 2 is to get adequate dietary vitamin D. Sure, you can drink milk. Or you can eat mushrooms. Yes, supposedly we can get enough vitamin D from just going in the sunlight, but the reality is most of us don't go in the sun. As a medical student, intern, resident, and fellow, I was basically trapped in a concrete fluorescent building living between hospitals. My longest shift was 36 hours straight without sleep. So at the end of the shift, I was barely awake and had enough energy to drive home to get some sleep. And when I woke up, it was time to go back to work again. Now, despite numerous interactions on a daily basis with lots of physicians, nobody ever told me to just take a simple vitamin D supplement. But be careful, as some supplements may not have the amount of vitamin D that they claim on the bottle, or they may have contaminants, especially if they're mixed with calcium. Sure, you can get vitamin D through just eating certain foods, but are you eating enough of these foods? Personally, I take a supplement as my insurance policy, so I'll never be vitamin D deficient again. There's a reason why the sun comes out every day and why vitamin D receptors are on every single cell in your body. It's not just plants that need sunlight to survive. And despite popular beliefs, what is considered adequate sunlight and adequate food are really not enough to get people adequate amounts of vitamin D. The amount of active vitamin D that you have in your body is dependent upon how well you're able to access these foods that are rich in vitamin D, as well as how well you're able to access the right UVB sunlight rays to produce vitamin D, which depends on the amount of fat that you have outside of your body, as well as your skin tone. The more subcutaneous fat you have and the darker your skin tone, the less you will be able to produce vitamin D. And this is why anyone who's overweight or have a darker skin tone should have their vitamin D levels checked. And we would all benefit from eating vitamin D rich foods and or take a supplement. However, like all nutrients, the absorption of vitamin D is dependent upon your gut integrity. And it gets even more complex. Even after you absorb vitamin D, it actually needs to be converted to the active form 1,25-hydroxy vitamin D. And this conversion is dependent upon adequate levels of magnesium as well as healthy kidneys. These are mushrooms. These are actually oyster mushrooms. And before you eat them, if you put them out in the sunlight, you'll actually get more vitamin D. Most foods have very low levels of vitamin D. And the richest food source of vitamin D is actually wild-caught salmon. You would have to eat 12 ounces of wild-caught salmon to get 1,000 international units of vitamin D. And when you're deficient, 1,000 international units is not enough to get you adequate. Now, I don't know about you, but that didn't fit my student budget. Some sugary drinks are fortified with vitamin D, like orange juice or milk. This is actually soy milk. There are 2 international units of vitamin D per cup of skim milk. And to get 1,000 international units would mean 500 cups of a lot of sugar. However, full-fat dairy milk is fortified with 124 international units of vitamin D. And this is because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So you will actually absorb more vitamin D if you eat it with your meals. But to get up to almost 1,000 international units, you would have to drink 8 cups of full-fat dairy, which is not really healthy, especially if you have lactose intolerance or if you're concerned about insulin-like growth factor in the milk stimulating cancer cells, especially in the prostate. Now, you can also get dietary vitamin D from fish oil, egg yolks, mushrooms, and red meat. The thing that people misunderstand is that vitamin D really isn't just a vitamin. It is actually more like a hormone that regulates your gene expression. Now, did you know that you need cholesterol to make vitamin D? As a result, vitamin D has very special properties that allow it to crisscross membranes to get into the center of your cell, the nucleus. Now, inside the nucleus is your DNA. And it interacts directly with your DNA. All your immune cells have DNA. And if it stimulates and activates the right expression of your DNA, you will be more able to defend and fight germs. Now, you have macrophages and neutrophils, which are immune cells that are all over your body. They are your first line of defense. They can make peptides in your mouth as well as your respiratory tract called cathelicidins and defensins that can kill or prevent germs from docking onto your cells and enter into your body. They also promote wound healing when you have an injury. And these cells are a part of your innate immune system. Now, if you've ever scratched yourself or gotten a welt, or if you've ever gotten a bump after a TB skin test, that is your innate immune system. When the germs bypass the system, your adaptive immune cells come into action called T cells and B cells. I tend to think of T cells as a command center or generals navigating the war against germs, and the B cells are the soldiers that produce the artillery called antibodies. And when your immune system is activated, we call that inflammation, in which the immune system is making lots of antibodies. Have you been tired? Maybe you got a sore in your mouth, or maybe you have sore muscles, sniffles, fevers, nausea, diarrhea, rashes, joint pain, chest pain. That is your immune system at work. That's how your immune system speaks to you. There is literally no body part or symptom that doesn't involve your immune system. Too much and you'll be in bed. Too little and you'll be below ground because you need your immune system to fight for you. And this is where vitamin D comes in. Vitamin D helps to promote the regulatory T cells to prevent your immune system from going haywire and then attacking self. That is a condition called autoimmunity. And this is why studies, including the one from Harvard, has shown that people with low vitamin D levels have higher rates of autoimmune conditions all over the body, and a daily supplement can help reduce that. Now, if you want to reduce your risk of autoimmune diseases, you have to make sure you have adequate vitamin D levels. Many T cells actually increase inflammatory proteins called cytokines like interferons and interleukins. And vitamin D reduces the production of the proteins to decrease inflammation and to decrease excessive antibody production to have that balance. This prevents excess inflammation and autoimmunity. This is why vitamin D is so important and why you need an adequate amount of the hormone vitamin D. Do you really want to take a chance with your health? Now, I believe this is why God created a foolproof way for us to obtain vitamin D, sunlight. But our immobile, industrialized society made out of concrete is preventing many of us from getting that natural sunlight. I mean, we're literally living in concrete caves and we go to a walk in a concrete building on a treadmill instead of walking around the block. And if you live in harsh winter states or country, it's even worse because the sun disappears and is further from the earth in the winter. This is where dietary vitamin D is super helpful. Sure, there's plenty of foods with vitamin D, but the reality is, how much milk are you going to drink? People just don't consume enough vitamin D unless they do it in a dietary supplement. And I'm one of those people. But even if you take a dietary supplement, not everybody will absorb all of it, especially if you have inflammation in the bowel. But again, you can increase your absorption by taking it with a meal. And some people will require vitamin D injections by their physicians. And even if you could absorb vitamin D, you still need to convert it to an active form, which requires enough magnesium and functional kidneys. Now, despite vitamin D supplements being super cheap and sunlight being essentially free, low vitamin D levels are rampant and extremely common. And it's unfortunate that people don't know that their vitamin D level is low, because I'm sure if they did, they would do something about that. In this day and age, there's no need for guesswork since you can simply ask your doctor for a blood test. In fact, there's even home test cards. And personally, I don't take any chances. That's why I take a daily vitamin D supplement. And I get my levels checked at least once annually. You just never know how aging will affect your absorption and production of vitamin D. Now, here's a list of people who will struggle with producing, absorbing, and or metabolizing vitamin D. And notice, if you have darker skin, it'll be even more difficult, even for children, to make vitamin D. My friend's teenage soccer son plays several hours every day in sunny Southern California, and yet he still has a low vitamin D level because his skin is darker. And it's even worse if you have a protective barrier between you and the sun's rays, which could be sunblock, clothes, clouds, and smog. And remember, the UV light from the sun is not going to be as strong if you live further away from the equator, especially in the fall and winter months. Now, have you noticed that in the fall and winter, people get colds more often? Now, there's a lot of reasons for this, but one theory is that people's immunity drops down because their vitamin D levels take a dive in fall and winter, which can be easily mitigated with taking a vitamin D supplement. And this is why monitoring your vitamin D level is super helpful. And this is a must do if you live in the same latitude with Minnesota or up, as the shortest day is less than 9 hours of sunlight in the winter. And if you live in the same latitude as Alaska, well, the shortest day is less than 6 hours of sunlight. Vitamin D levels optimally should be at least 50 nanograms per deciliter to reduce the risk of respiratory tract infections. I never got a vitamin D level until after I suffered from a severe respiratory infection that lasted 3 months during my pediatrics rotation. And that's probably why I'm not a pediatrician. And I only got my levels checked because my dad suffered a spinal fracture and he had an unmeasurable level of vitamin D. Now, he had osteomalacia from vitamin D deficiency despite living in sunny Southern California. And I didn't realize that he was spending most of his time indoors. Do you have parents or grandparents that are stuck indoors? Please encourage them to sit outside and have them see their physician to get their vitamin D level measured. Isn't that crazy how a vitamin that costs pennies could have prevented my dad's spinal fracture that took away his ability to walk? It's estimated that 1 in 1,000 people worldwide have osteomalacia. So I personally, whenever I can, take my breaks outdoors. I take walks outdoors on my day off. I get early morning sunlight. And most importantly, regardless of my plans for the day, I've trained myself to take a daily vitamin D supplement. And if you want to know what I take, I have a link in the show notes below. Now, honestly, sunlight and sleeping are the two things that I struggle on a daily basis to get enough of. And as a teenager, I stayed up all night to talk to my best friend on the phone. Little did I know I was living the life like an intern or a young mom caring for infants. And when it comes to sleep deprivation, motherhood is worse than being an intern, because as an intern, at least I got time off to make up for the lack of sleep. And I didn't realize that sleep deprivation actually contributed to my gestational diabetes because it messed up my circadian rhythm. Now, we all have an internal biological clock, a time clock called the circadian rhythm. And in fact, The master clock is the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain that not only controls your circadian rhythm, but it also controls your sleep-wake cycles, hormone release, and it controls your body temperature, as well as other vital bodily functions. Now, when you wake up and you go out into the sun, that sunlight enters into your eyes, stimulating cells in the back of your retina called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. And these cells, they contain a photopigment called melanopsin, which is particularly sensitive to blue light, a component of sunlight. And once melanopsin absorbs sunlight, it triggers a cascade of events within the intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, causing these cells to become electrically active, sending signals throughout your optic nerve to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your hypothalamus. The suprachiasmatic nucleus uses this light information to synchronize your body's internal clock with your external light and dark cycle. However, excessive blue light, that can cause oxidative damage to your retina over time, leading to conditions like age-related macular degeneration. However, lutein and zeaxanthin, two carotenoids that you can get in certain foods, protect your eyes by absorbing blue light. And this is why it's really important to eat your leafy greens. Now, if your circadian rhythm is messed up, you will struggle with restorative sleep. And you may be using melatonin, the sleep hormone made from the amino acid tryptophan. And this is one reason why eating tryptophan-rich foods are important for a good night's sleep. And by the way, amongst plants, tofu and quinoa, they have the highest amount of tryptophan. Your circadian rhythm helps you get sleepy and also helps you perk up to wake up. And this is all regulated by the sun, which tells your body to stop melatonin. And this then makes you alert and awake. When melatonin rises, you get sleepy at night. And this is why taking a melatonin supplement can help people with jet lag, which can be a real drag when you're flying past several time zones. Now, some people use melatonin about 3 milligrams after they arrive at their destination to reduce jet lag. The trick is to take melatonin at your normal bedtime and to use it for a short period, like 5 days or less. It's been shown that it can reduce the symptoms of jet lag by improving recovery time by about a day to a day and a half, which is a significant amount, especially if you're only going for a short trip. It's important not to take it earlier than 8 p.m. and no later than 4 a.m. in the time zone that you came from. And in fact, some have found that it works even better if you can take it close to the target bedtime at the destination. Hopefully, that's about 10 p.m. and before midnight. And because melatonin makes you sleepy, it's important not to drive or operate machines or drink alcohol or to take other sedatives at the same time. One more thing, if you have autoimmune conditions, it's not advised to take any melatonin. Now, I know parents who give their children melatonin supplements to help them sleep. I think this can be very problematic because melatonin is a hormone that affects growth, learning, and brain development as well as memory. So this can disrupt potentially puberty, alter mood, as well as behavior. Now, really, no matter your age, whenever you take something that can interfere with the brain, like melatonin, it's best not to overdo it and to not do it too often. Besides being a potent stimulant of the circadian rhythm, melatonin itself can also influence your metabolism and blood sugar control. Now, if you're struggling with high blood sugars, could it be because you're not sleeping enough? Or maybe you're using melatonin too much. When melatonin is around, insulin actually goes down. And when melatonin goes down, more insulin is released. So when you're sleepy, you're not going to metabolize glucose well if you don't have insulin. This is another reason why when you eat late at night, you have far higher blood sugar levels compared to eating the same food earlier in the day. So in essence, the presence of melatonin makes a person more insulin resistant. And this is one reason why shift workers exposed to artificial night lights have poor metabolism and are at higher risk of insulin resistance, i.e. prediabetes and diabetes. And this is another reason why if you want to use melatonin, you should really use the minimum amount that works. Of course, higher persistent blood sugar levels reduce your immune resilience. And by itself, melatonin is actually considered an antioxidant that neutralizes free radicals, which can cause oxidative stress. It is an important tool to activate antioxidant enzymes such as glutathione peroxidase, catalase, dismutase, and it can also modulate cytokines and can decrease the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines such as tumor necrosis factor and interleukin-6, as well as nuclear factor kappa B. And this reduces inflammation. At the same time, melatonin enhances activity of natural killer cells, T cells, and B cells, which are all critical against a fight against infections. And when you're healthy, your immune system is synchronized to perfectly balance your circadian rhythm with your melatonin levels. But if you don't sleep well, we know that your immune system will take a deep dive down and be immunosuppressed. And that's why it's not beneficial to get any commonly recommended shots the day after you're sleep deprived. You're basically not going to mount an immune response. So then, essentially, you got the shot for nothing. Now, by itself, melatonin has also activity against a variety of germs to help you fight when you're exposed, as well as help you recover. And that's why it's so crucial to sleep. And this is why sleeping optimizes your immune system. Now, I've listed sleep as number 3, but in reality, it should be number 1. I mean, we've all felt sleep deprivation. There's just no way to function when you're sleep deprived. But it's not just any sleep. The sleep that will restore your health and immune system is called REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. So drinking alcohol reduces REM sleep and prevents you from even getting into REM sleep. And that's another reason why alcohol causes immunosuppression and can lead to dementia. Now, many drugs actually can inhibit REM sleep, even though it makes people feel sleepy. So it gives people a false impression that they are rested, but in reality, they're not really rested. During REM sleep, the body restores and enhances immune functions, helping to prepare the immune system to defend against pathogens. Now, adequate REM sleep ensures a balanced production of cytokines, preventing an overreactive immune response that could lead to overinflammation and autoimmune disorders. REM sleep has been shown to enhance the production of antibodies as well, and this is particularly important after you want to get shots. So you can actually improve the efficacy of those shots by enhancing the immune system's response by getting enough REM sleep. Now, chronic deprivation of REM sleep, that can impair the immune system, making the body more susceptible to all kinds of things, including infections. And studies have shown that people who don't get enough REM sleep are more likely to develop illnesses after exposure to germs. The lack of REM sleep can also lead to an increase in pro-inflammatory cytokines, which can contribute to chronic inflammation and autoimmune diseases, as well as chronic metabolic disorders. And if this is you, you are at higher risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and autoimmune diseases. Now, number 4 is Epigallocatechin gallate. What's the first thing that you do when you wake up? Now, many people make a cup of coffee. I make a cup of green tea. And the reason is because I want to get my Epigallocatechin gallate, as well as many other antioxidants, to prepare my body for stresses that are just simply a part of my life going to work. Green tea is rich in polyphenols, especially catechins like Epigallocatechin gallate. These compounds are powerful antioxidants that help to neutralize free radicals, reducing oxidative stress. Now, Epigallocatechin gallate has been shown to also modulate the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines. It can inhibit the activity of nuclear factor kappa B, a protein complex that plays a key role in regulating the immune response to infections and chronic inflammation. By itself, it also has antibacterial activity against a range of pathogens, including Staphylococcus aureus and E. coli, as well as various respiratory germs. In fact, the Japanese have shown that if you get the kids and your elderly to gargle with green tea every day, you can actually reduce their respiratory colds. Now, green tea is essentially a green leaf. So when you drink matcha green tea, you're actually drinking a powdered green leaf. That's why it's not so surprising green tea has prebiotic effects, promoting the growth of beneficial gut bacteria. And by now, after you've been watching my videos, you all know that a healthy gut microbiome is essential for a robust immune system. The gut microbiome significantly influences development and function of your immune cells. It helps to maintain your gut integrity. It prevents the translocation of harmful pathogens and toxins in the bloodstream. There are lots of reports of how green tea potentially can prevent cancer, which will soon surpass cardiovascular disease as the #1 leading cause of death around the world. So really, we all need all the help we can get. Now, these days, people are living in their 60s and 70s after they've gone through chemotherapy and are on a ton of cardiac medication. I would rather not have to do that. And that's why it's important to support and protect your liver, because toxins are a big reason why your DNA mutates and turn into cancer. And your number one organ that helps the rest of your body detox is your liver. I take a supplement called N-acetylcysteine for a variety of reasons. And number one is because I want to support my glutathione redox system. As a side benefit, this publication has shown that during winter months, people get less respiratory infections if they have supplemental N-acetylcysteine. Now, cysteine is a semi-essential amino acid that your body can make, and you can get it through food as well. But cysteine, it's not really absorbed well through food, and it's not utilized by the body the same way that N-acetylcysteine is. Now, N-acetylcysteine provides the acetylated form of cysteine, which is actually more bioavailable and can directly increase glutathione production. Cysteine by itself would not adequately replenish glutathione stores in time to prevent liver damage in the presence of a large burden of toxins. Now, you have multiple detox systems, but the glutathione redox system is one of your most important, especially in your liver. Have you ever taken Tylenol or acetaminophen? Well, acetaminophen is a medication found in many cold remedies, such as headache relievers, fever reducers, and it's sold under the brand name Tylenol. It's also commonly combined with pain medications such as Vicodin, Norco, Percocet, Tylenol with codeine. Now, there is a maximum allowable dose of acetaminophen that you can take in a day without seriously messing up your liver. So everything you take adds up. And when you take an excessive amount from prescription to over-the-counter medication, this can lead to severe liver toxicity. Acetaminophen is metabolized in your liver, and a small portion of it is converted into a toxic metabolite called N-acetyl-P-benzoquinine-amine. Normally, N-acetyl-P-benzoquinine-amine is detoxified by the glutathione redox system, and this is why it's important to have enough glutathione. However, in cases of excess, glutathione stores become depleted, leading to an accumulation of an N-acetyl-P-benzoquinine-amine, which can cause severe liver damage and potentially fatal liver failure. Acetaminophen toxicity is a leading cause of acute liver failure in many countries, including the United States. Tens of thousands of hospitalizations occur each year because of acetaminophen overdoses, both accidental and intentional. In a normal, healthy person, supposedly the maximum recommended dose for an adult is 4,000 milligrams per day, divided into doses of 500 to 1,000 milligrams every 4 to 6 hours. However, it is even better to stay under 3,000 milligrams per day to minimize the risk of liver damage. It is estimated to be responsible for approximately 500 deaths annually in the U.S. alone. Worldwide, the number varies, but acetaminophen overdose is a significant cause of morbidity and mortality. The antidote is N-acetylcysteine. This is a standard treatment when we are dealing with acetaminophen toxicity. N-acetylcysteine acts as a precursor to glutathione to help replenish the liver's glutathione stores and allowing your own body to detoxify the harmful N-acetyl-P-benzoquinone-amine metabolite. And by boosting glutathione levels, N-acetylcysteine can prevent or mitigate liver damage, especially if administered within 8 to 10 hours of an overdose. That's why it's ironic that the FDA wanted to ban N-acetylcysteine as a supplement back in 2020, and that's why it disappeared from all the store shelves, yet it still allows acetaminophen to be sold mixed in all kinds of prescription and over-the-counter medications. Now, N-acetylcysteine is not by itself without side effects. If you get an infusion of N-acetylcysteine, potentially you can get a severe allergic reaction called anaphylaxis that can be fatal. It can also cause seizures and heart failure, especially if you're overdosing it. After all, it's an amino acid that can shift osmolality, fluid balance, and pH. So this is why I'm not so keen on IV infusions unless my liver is going to die. And that's why I also do a limited amount of oral N-acetylcysteine. And it's really ironic that the FDA wanted to ban oral N-acetylcysteine, a very well tolerated oral amino acid supplement, and still allows acetaminophen to be sold all over the place, despite causing tens of thousands of emergency room visits every year. And it is still the most common cause of liver transplantation in the U.S. every year. Now, number 6 are carotenoids, which is basically a form of vitamin A. Vitamin A is crucial to preserve a healthy immune system and your epithelial cells, which include your skin, your respiratory tract, and your gastrointestinal lining. Now, these tissues, they act as a first line of defense against against pathogens. On these mucosal surfaces, your body makes mucins and glycoproteins that forms a protective surface. Your mucus traps and eliminates pathogens. So you need vitamin A to repair and regenerate that skin, that mucosal tissue, which is crucial for healing after an injury or an infection and to prevent the entry of pathogens. Now, vitamin A also helps to regulate the production of antimicrobial peptides, such as defensin, which are part of the innate immune system. Now, these peptides, they have broad spectrum activity against bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Vitamin A also helps to balance the activity of T cells and B cells to allow the production of immunoglobulin A, an antibody that is crucial for your mucosal defense. And that's because IgA neutralizes pathogens before they can enter the bloodstream. And you may know a form of vitamin A as a treatment for severe acne, Accutane. But did you know that vitamin A is also important as a treatment for measles? Accutane is a synthetic version of vitamin A, which regulates cellular growth and division, and is believed to work by altering DNA transcription to reduce the production of oils. And this in turn reduces clogged pores, and it reduces inflammation caused by bacteria feeding on those clogged pores called Propionibacterium acnes, which actually doesn't necessarily have to stay on your skin. I've seen this bacteria invade the brain, the bone, and joints. Now, because Accutane is so closely related to vitamin A, it's recommended that you not take additional vitamin A supplements while you are taking Accutane. The reality is, not every teenager around the world gets acne. It's not a rite of passage. In fact, countries that eat an abundance of fruit and vegetables and not processed foods, they don't have any acne. And this is because plants, they have an abundance of vitamins, including vitamin A. Now, number 7 is beta-glucans, which are a type of carbohydrate abundant in the cell wall of fungi. Now, in fact, if you have an actual fungal infection, I actually can check beta-glucan levels in the body, and we actually monitor that to see if you cleared the fungus. Beta-glucans are special because they have immune-stimulating properties. Now, I talked about your innate immune system in the very beginning of this video, which include macrophages and neutrophils and dendritic cells that play crucial roles in guarding your health. And the presence of beta-glucans actually perk those cells up so that they can be more efficient and active in destroying your pathogens. And when you stimulate the innate immune system, you also activate the adaptive immune system, which remember are the T cells and B cells that can further specifically target those pathogens. Now remember, when you have an active infection, there's going to be a buildup of cytokines that help to regulate your body's immune response. And beta-glucans can help balance those cytokines to mount an appropriate response. And when you get an infection, that causes a lot of oxidative stress to damage immune cells, to cause lots of inflammation. That's why it's important not to be overinflamed. Have you noticed that after a hard workout, you feel tired, which kind of feels similar to you fighting a germ? Your immune system reacts to both in a similar way. And the difference is you can just simply stop working out. But when it comes to germ, you really have no control over whether or not that germ stops replicating and stimulating your immune system. And this is where beta-glucans can come in handy, because if you can mount the appropriate response and get more energy, then you can beat whatever stressor you're facing. But it definitely helps to have the right equipment. This includes the right minerals. Number 8, magnesium. Magnesium is arguably one of the most important minerals that you have in your body, as it is the cofactor for over 300 different types of enzymes that are responsible for the daily operation of your health. This includes glucose metabolism, energy production, DNA, and protein synthesis. Now, these are all essential for every cell, especially your immune cells, because when they're in battle against germs, they are rapidly dividing. Magnesium also has anti-inflammatory properties to reduce chronic inflammation. Now, many people know of magnesium as having a calming effect. It can calm down muscle cramps as well as soreness and the brain and nervous system. Now, when people think of muscles, they think of skeletal muscles, the ones that move your arms and your legs. But there are muscles that allow you to expand and contract your airways, as well as muscles that allow you to digest food. These are called smooth muscles. You need an adequate amount of magnesium for these organs to move properly. Now, needless to say, when a molecule is that important, God's going to put multiple backup plans in case you don't eat eat enough of it. 50% of Americans are not eating enough dietary magnesium in their diets. You know, it's no big deal if you skip a meal for a day, but if you are deficient every day, well, things will eventually not work so well. When you don't eat magnesium, do you know what the backup plan is? Well, you're going to get your magnesium from your bones. So if you don't want brittle bones when you're old, you need to make sure you get enough daily magnesium. Speaking of protein, have you heard of bromelain? Number 9. Bromelain is a group of proteolytic enzymes that break down protein and is only found in one type of plant, the pineapple plant, or Ananas commosis. It is primarily in the stem of the fruit. You can get some bromelain when you eat these plants, but it's really not going to be as concentrated like a dietary supplement. I've noticed I can't eat too many pieces of pineapple because it makes my mouth raw. And I think it's because of the proteolytic enzymes with the ascorbic acid. Bromelain has been shown to inhibit pro-inflammatory cytokines to reduce inflammation in the body. Physicians and surgeons have used bromelains to reduce swelling, pain, and bruising post-operatively or during sports injuries. And this helps to improve recovery. As a proteolytic enzyme, it can help aid the absorption of nutrients. Now, bromelain and turmeric, they have an added anti-inflammatory effect, and bromelain is actually known to improve the bioavailability of curcumin in turmeric because it helps it to be absorbed better. And these are some of the reasons why I take bromelain on a daily basis. Now, number 10 is an endocannabinoid. Have you heard of your endocannabinoid system? Now, when I went to medical school, I didn't know about this system. And it's basically a pretty complex signaling system that allows your body to be healthy. So on your immune cells, you have endocannabinoid and cannabinoid receptors that regulate inflammation and change how your innate and adaptive immune system interact with your nervous system. When your immune system goes haywire, you often get nervous system symptoms. Now, when you injure yourself, let's say you get a cut. Well, your body needs to make molecules to speed up recovery and repair. One of these molecules is called palmitoylethanolamide, which is synthesized from palmitic acid. But you can also get palmitoylethanolamide when you eat foods such as soybeans, peanuts, beans, green coffee, and cocoa. Palmitoylethanolamide can downregulate pro-inflammatory cytokines, stabilize mast cells to reduce histamines, and reduce other inflammatory mediators. So the presence of palmitoylethanolamide decreases inflammation, decreases oxidative stress to help relieve pain, and is considered to be neuroprotective and immune enhancing, especially in the respiratory system. In fact, it was actually once marketed as a treatment for common colds and influenza. And this is why I make it a point to eat certain foods on a daily basis. But sometimes I just get too busy, so I have an insurance policy for myself by taking a multi-nutrient supplement. And if you want to know what I take, I have a link in the show notes below. So these are just some of the things I do daily to bulletproof my immunity. And if you want to know why I use cordyceps mushrooms as my source of beta-glucans, watch the next video.